Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Flipping Out. My name is Paul Lizell, your host, and with me is my friend Dustin Heiner. And Dustin's kind of a great inspirational story. I'm going to get him into that here in about 2 seconds. He's got a great educational program as well. But Dustin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into this, and then just take us right into your story.
Hey, Paul. Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show. I love being able to share with everybody what real estate's done in my life and just changing my life literally from working at dead end. I call it a JOB, a just over broke job. It's you're just living just over broke and getting out of that by investing in real estate is just amazing. So yeah, absolutely. So I started investing in 2006. And if you remember back in 2006, the market was really, really low, or sorry, really, really high, and the rents were really, really low.
Yeah, they
and
were.
you couldn't really make money. But let me tell you really quickly about me and how I really got the guts to become an investor. Now, I have always been entrepreneurial in my life. I like starting businesses. So when I was 13 years old, I had a newspaper delivery company where I would take the newspapers from my bike and the bags and throw it and bang on the garage doors, wake people up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I did that. I also have a graphic and website design company. I also had a convenience store, a pizzeria. I even had a skateboard manufacturing business. All the while, I went to school, and I was always taught, just like we are always taught, that you go to school, you go to college, then you get a good job. From there, you retire when you're 65 years old and hopefully have enough money to save that you're going to live on. And I was just working the regular 9-to-5 job. So after college, graduated, got a job. Even though it was entrepreneurial, I still was doing that same type of thing where I was doing that working 9 to 5. So I was working for a county in Fresno County in California, doing IT work there at Fresno County. And as my wife and I were married, I had these businesses, but they weren't doing that great, not making us any money really. And at the same time, I bought one rental property. And I bought rental property. I was like, man, this is great. Like, I don't do any work. I have property managers that do the work, and I keep making money every single month. This is great. I should do more, but I really didn't. Now, this is what really catapulted me into investing, being an investor. So my wife and I started having kids. Eventually, like if you can watch this, you can see in the background, I have my 4 kids. By the time my 4th daughter was born, 4th child, so we have 2 girls, 2 boys. My 4th child was born, and I went on paternity leave. So I had a regular desk job, working 9 to 5, and I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom and bonds with the baby, changes poopy diapers and all that sort of stuff for about a week or so. And so after that paternity leave, I go back to work, and for about a week, I'm back at work. And on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. I get a call from her, and she says, "Dustin, would you please come to the boss's office?" And I said, "Sure." And I hung up the phone. And I paused for a second. I was like, well, I've only been back for a week now, and I haven't done anything good or bad to need this call. And this is weird. What's going on? And I sat there for a second. I thought to myself, well, what could possibly have happened? And in the past, I was literally sitting there. I was remembering a month or two prior, I started thinking, there's been rumors, there's some rumblings that there had been talks of layoffs in the county because there were some, I guess, money issues or, lack of taxes or something. And I said, no way for me. I've been here for, 13, 14 years now. Great seniority. My bosses think I do a great job. There's no way I'm gonna get laid off. So I immediately shook that off. So I got up, walked down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's a fairly short hallway, but every step that I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. It felt like my feet turned into lead bricks as I walked down the hallway, because as I'm walking through, I'm realizing that this potentially could be the time that I get laid off and the world starts falling on my shoulders. And I start thinking about my kids. And as I'm walking down the hallway, I turn the corner and I see my his door's closed and his secretary's right there and looking at me. Really nice lady. Sheepishly, she grins and says, "Dustin, would you please have a seat?" And she's consoling me with her eyes, and I go take a seat, and she knows everything that's going on. I knows nothing about what's going on. So she's tried her best without saying anything to try to console me. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about, my goodness, this is 3:30 in the afternoon on Friday. I'm probably getting laid off. And as I'm thinking that, I'm realizing, oh my goodness, all these many years of working this corporate 9-to-5 job, is that all going to be taken away from me? Was all those years just worthless? And then I started thinking, oh my goodness, I got 4 kids at home. How am I going to feed my family? Does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Now, as I'm sitting there, my forehead gets all sweaty, my hands get all clammy because the weight of everything is starting to crash on me. And then opens the door to my boss's office, and out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hand. She's noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not crying, but you could tell her world has 100% been rocked. And my boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? So I get up and I walk into the office and I get laid off. And mind you, this is the government. Nobody gets laid off or fired from the government, but I did. So I take that layoff notice and I walk down the hallway and I go and sit down in my office. I got 2 weeks to figure this out. And I realized 2 things right then and there, Paul. Number one, I realized I need to get another job. I need to figure out how to provide for my family. And so I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to be able to find another county department in the same county, another department, the sheriff's department. Great department. They had a spot. They picked me up and I started working for them. Didn't even get laid off. It was such a blessing. So check, got that one done. The second thing, as I'm sitting there in that chair, I realized the second thing. I need to make sure that I never, ever let this happen to me again. So right then and there, I realized no longer would I ever answer the question, hey, Dustin, what do you do? And everybody gets that question. And they're asking you, what value do you put on yourself? Well, what I would normally answer, and most people do, is with my job. Well, I work for the county. I do IT work there at the county. But I realized they're sitting in that chair. My value is not in my job. And everybody listening to this and watching this, you must realize your value is not in your job. In fact, your boss is only paying, they can never pay you what you're worth, what your true value is. They're only paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of your pocket. So as I'm sitting there, I realize no longer will I ever tell anybody my job. Now what I will say, I am an investor. Now it so happens that maybe 100% of my money comes from my job. That's my part-time job. I am a full-time investor. From that point forward, started working in the new county department, worked really, really well there, saved my money, bought the next property, saved money, brought the next property. After 30 plus properties, I was like, my goodness, why am I still working here? I'm losing money here instead of, even though I'm making $75,000 a year here, I'm losing money here. Let me quit. So Paul, I'll round out the story by saying this. I walked to my new boss's office, great boss and everything. I said, boss, I'm laying you off. And joking, I didn't really say that, but I laid him off. I gave him a 2 weeks notice and I said, I'm done. And my boss says, Dustin, what are you going to do? I said, nothing. I have real estate. I have rental properties. I literally don't need to work and the money comes in. So finish out the story. If you remember that walk that I took to my first boss's office, that hallway felt like it got longer. My feet were lead bricks. Well, I worked in downtown Fresno, about a 1.5 mile walk to my car. I've taken this walk 1,000 times because I didn't want to pay for parking, but I've taken this walk 1,000 times. The last time that I walked away from my job, I felt like I was walking on clouds. I was walking on clouds because I realized I would never, ever need a job again because everything that I built has now prepared me so that nobody could ever take my livelihood, take the ability to feed my family away from me. Now, I literally have all the money, the time, and everything that I need to do whatever I want. So I'll finish the story because there's probably a lot of questions. And I definitely,
keep going. I'm liking it. Keep it going, Dustin.
Awesome. So everybody here listening needs to realize this, that catalyst for me was being laid off. And most people would say, oh man, that's so horrible. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'll tell you this, if this happens to anybody, you need to realize this necessity is the mother of invention. I necessarily needed to figure out a way to make sure this never happened again. So I bought property after property after property. Pretty soon I had, $10,000 a month coming in passive income, like literally not working, money coming in every single month. And so I said, I'm going to go ahead and quit.
That's awesome. And one thing that's interesting in that, just two things, actually. two things. One, you were able to get all these properties while you had a job that it wasn't a 1099 job, it was a W-2 job where you could show this income. Much easier to qualify for a mortgage with this too. Yeah. Much easier. Whereas if somebody just goes off on their own, doesn't have the income, difficult to get a mortgage. So great, you had a plan. And I never heard you say that, you know what, I'm going to do this. And then when I get a certain amount of properties, I'm going to exit. It just kind of seemed like it almost kind of happened for you. And then you realize, wow, I don't need to work anymore. Now I can do whatever the heck I want.
In fact, I should have quit like 2 years earlier, but I was nervous, even though that W-2 job is not guaranteed. And I'm proof of that. Yeah. Like I said, if I can get fired or laid off from the government, anybody can get fired or laid off from anywhere.